Hello, friends and adventurers. Our podcast has been supported for months now by Misty Mountain Gaming, and they're now rewarding you, our listeners, with savings on all their fine D&D products such as metal dice, stone dice, glass dice, miniatures, adventures, dice trays, and more. You can use the code TWINS10, that's TWINS10, to save 10% on all purchases made in their online store at mistymountaingaming.com. Every code redeemed helps support Steven and I, and encourages us to make more and better content for you. So be sure to use code TWINS10 whenever you're buying premium Dungeons & Dragons dice and gear from our good friends at mistymountaingaming.com. Okay, on with the show. Okay, man, you all set to record this week?
Sure am. I was thinking we could talk about some of the changes to D&D this week.
Sounds good. Like across the different editions?
No, just one edition.
Which edition?
1D&D.
Which one?
1D&D.
First edition?
No, the new edition.
Oh, you said like D&D 1, like the first edition.
No, I mean the new one.
5th edition.
No, I don't want to talk about D&D next.
So what do you want to talk about next?
1D&D.
And only 1D&D?
That's right.
So which one?
I just told you.
Told me what?
Which edition I wanted to talk about.
And which one is that?
1D&D.
I didn't ask you how many.
I'm not telling you how many. I'm telling you we're going to talk about only 1D&D. One.
1, so like 3rd edition?
No, not 3rd. 1. 1 comes after 3rd.
1 comes after 3rd?
Yes, 3 full editions after it.
Additions? You mean subtractions, right?
No, that's how the new editions work now.
New editions? Let's not bring math into this here. There's enough in D&D already. All the modifiers and rolls and numbers and addition.
Look, I'm not talking about addition. I want to talk about the new edition.
New edition? I never understood all that new math stuff, man. I just understand D&D.
Not anymore, you don't, because there's a new edition.
What was wrong with the old edition?
It's just out of date. There were some things that needed improvement, streamlining, and folks are just ready for a change.
To edition?
To the edition, yes. And in this edition, they're creating entirely new content, plus making some changes to how 5th edition worked.
So you do want to talk about 5th edition?
Some, I guess, but I really just want to talk about 1D&D.
Which D&D?
1D&D.
5e?
No, not 5e. I guess you could kind of think of it as a 6e.
Oh, 5e is pretty sexy, all right.
I mean, sure, I guess, but I bet that 6e might be even sexier.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, but I'm optimistic. I might end up preferring it to 5e.
Preferring what to 5e?
1D&D.
Which D&D?
I just told you.
Okay, I must have missed it.
1D&D.
I feel like we're going in circles here.
6e.
Don't bring 6e back. I'm trying to find out what you want to talk about so we can record this dang podcast episode.
All right, we're talking about the new playtest material that Wizards of the Coast just released for rogues, rangers, and bards.
Oh, gotcha. See, if you told me we were going to be talking about bards, that whole 6e thing would have made a lot more sense.
What's up, players? And also DMs. Welcome back to another episode of Bardic Twinspiration, a topical D&D podcast where we talk about all things D&D. I am your host, Steven, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, the D&D wannabe.
Hey, my name is Rob, and that was actually a pretty clever little intro. I was very shocked by the what's up players until you got to the DMs part.
So, in our last episode, Rob and I sat down to catch up with one another and have a discussion about 1D&D, the playtest material for the 6th edition of Dungeons & Dragons that is going to be released in 2024. Rob and I finally got to sit down, record that episode, share our thoughts with one another and with you, and we finally got it edited and posted it today. But during our editing process, Wizards of the Coast has released yet another playtest packet, so we're a little late to the party talking about the first packet when the second one is already released, so we're not going to make that mistake again. We are going to go ahead and sit down today to discuss the Expert Classes packet.
Yeah, we're trying to do better. We're trying to stay on the cutting edge of D&D news now. We're trying to be a little bit more relevant when there's something new afoot. So we're going to take the next couple of episodes and dive into this document, maybe a little deeper than we did the last one, and there's definitely more of it to go over.
Good grief, yes. I mean, the first packet had 21 pages, I think, in it, and this second one has now 38. So, yeah, pretty big difference. And we didn't even cover everything that was in the first packet. So we're going to try to be a little bit more thorough on this one. We're still not going to go line by line, but we definitely want to stay abreast of the big changes that are being handed out to us and give you some of our thoughts and opinions on them, as well as share them with one another, of course, because we still haven't talked much about our feelings on this packet. We're trying to save a lion's share of that conversation for you here on the podcast.
And now, since this material is so new, a lot of D&D content creators out there have rushed to give you the gist of it, or what they feel are the important bits. And even just what I have perused today, some of them are getting the details wrong. They just haven't read them thoroughly enough in their haste to react to this new content. And technically, while we have given a little more space than some of them have, we fall into that category.
Yeah, we may not successfully get everything right in our review of this content either. I've seen a lot of people miss things, and I've seen a lot of people catch things that other people have missed. We're probably going to do the same, in all honesty.
But we are going to give you the bulk of what you can expect from this new material and from these changes, with the stuff that really stuck out to us.
In an attempt to miss a few less things, we're going to try actually going through the material in the order that it was presented. Hopefully that way we won't miss out on anything major as we go through the document with y'all.
And together, because again, first time for us too.
And hey, if you have the ability to, feel free to pull this document up and follow along with us. We're going to be starting out on page 2.
As with the last episode, I have a link to the link to get the PDF in the description of the episode, so feel free to read along. So as you already alluded, the big change is in the title of the document. These are the expert classes, the Bard, the Rogue, and the Ranger. And while the Bard and the Rogue have had an expertise feature and are generally considered to be the skill monkeys of D&D, the Ranger is getting added to that conversation, and I think rightfully so. But this classification does have some implications for the rest of the edition as we're going forward, because they've also classified every other class and made them distinct as groups.
I'm going to be honest, when I read that this was the expert classes document, I thought they were saying that these were going to be the ones that were a little bit more difficult to play.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to be better at stuff than the other classes, and I think that is primarily going to manifest itself in the skills area.
Oh, yeah. When I first opened the document, I realized, the Rogue is in here. This is not the most complicated class to play. So what they're referring to when they say expert classes is a group of classes that share something in common, because that is one of the major changes that are coming in 6E, is that the classes are going to be grouped. Currently, and probably totally, we have 4 groups that are presented to us, each containing 3 classes. There's the experts group, which is the Bard, the Rogue, and the Ranger discussed in this document, which are defined by their expertise feature. Then we have the mages, including sorcerer, warlock, and wizard, the priests, the cleric, druid, and paladin, and the warriors, including the barbarian, fighter, and monk. For those of you out there who are missing the artificer, they will eventually be lumped into the experts class as well, but because they were not included in the 2014 Player's Handbook, for some reason, they are also not included in this playtest.
Yeah, I wonder why that would be. It's like they're already letting us know we're going to be releasing extra books that you're going to have to buy if you want to get the full package for D&D. And again, I think I said this in our last episode, that's expected, but we've spent so much time building up the races, the classes, the spell lists from 5th edition, and a lot of good work is done, and so little would have to be changed to make that available for 1D&D the way that they're going. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit disappointed that they're not going to give us a good starting point and then start creating new material.
Yeah, I thought you, of all people, would not be surprised by that development, but I can certainly see you being disappointed by it, so that makes sense.
Because I'm going to buy it! That's my money!
So the reason that they are putting these classes into groups is good housekeeping, kind of like some of the other changes that they're making, such as making more conditions that can be applied by different effects, such as the slowed condition, or such as making the concept of a D20 test encompass every time you pick up a D20 die, which I guess is redundant to D20 die. You know what I mean.
Or the big distinctions for the spells as well, putting those into broader categories.
Yes, and the reason they're doing all of these things is simplicity, streamlining, and future-proofing. Because now, when they create the Artificer in this extraneous additional document, in this next publication that they're putting out after the release of 1D&D, they can then go back and say that all of these features and options which are available to the expert classes are now also available to the Artificer, and they can do that by simply including the Artificer in the expert group, rather than, as they have had to do in other previous books from 5th edition, going back and making that specification every time it comes up.
Right, and they even say as much in the next paragraph, saying that these groupings will be relevant to attuning to particular magic items, or taking particular feats. We saw in the last document that feat prerequisites are going to be a little bit more of a thing in 1D&D, and while we will eventually get to the feats at the end of this document, it's important to go ahead and know that the class classifications, that doesn't even roll off the tongue right.
The classifications
are going to be significant from a mechanical standpoint.
I also like that a lot of the things they're doing within these playtest documents is just making D&D even more accessible than it already is. To someone who's coming in new to the hobby and is not sure which class to pick, by categorizing them into these groups, they have explicitly made the recommendation, if you want to have a well-rounded group of adventurers, you should pick one from each of these 4 groups.
That's a fair point.
Looking over the list, I think that is pretty valid. You know, because if you have a party made up of a sorcerer, warlock, and wizard, you're not going to be able to do the same things as if you had a ranger, wizard, and paladin. There are just some aspects of the game that you will not fully engage in or not engage in as well, or which will present, at the very least, particular challenges to your group unless you spread things out, and I am generally in favor of the way they broke these down.
And I think that as we see more subclasses revealed for 1D&D, we're going to see those lines start to blur a little bit, kind of like we have in the past edition. In 5e, you have a rogue subclass that's kind of like a wizard, and you have a barbarian subclass that's kind of like a sorcerer, and a ranger subclass that's a little like a rogue. And that's fine. I think that is a good expression of the full gamut of different kinds of adventurers that there are out there, especially since, as we're going to see, and I know this matters a lot to you, multi-classing may be a less attractive option as we go forward.
We will be discussing that as we go through. It's going to come up. I feel like that if things go unchanged from the ways the classes are presented right now, it will make multiclassing a lot more difficult. And I feel like we're going to be talking about that very soon. So let's just go ahead and start discussing the classes, and we'll come to that point as it arrives ergonomically, which incidentally will be very, very soon. Going from there, let's go ahead and jump into the first 1D&D class with which we have been presented, the Bard.
Bards, baby! They couldn't have made me happier by going ahead and releasing my favorite 5th edition class as a preview for 1D&D. And they may not be my favorite in the next edition of D&D. We will have to see. I know some people are very excited about the changes. I am torn. I definitely see the good and the bad.
Yeah, there's some real highs and lows in this document. Do you want to go ahead and tell folks how you feel about it in general? Or do you want to just kind of bury the lead and we'll discuss it when we wrap up the Bard class at the end?
Let's talk about it at the end, because you need to understand how I get to my opinion, I feel, because I've already said I'm torn. So, first off, level 1 doesn't look all that different on the surface. As a Bard, you have the same hit die, you have the same saving throws, you have the same freedom to pick 3 skills of your choice, something that is, in 5th edition, unique to the Bard class. And so far, unique to the Bard class in the 1D&D playable content as well. You lose some weapon proficiencies, but keep your armor proficiencies.
Yes, now we are down to just simple weapons. Now, notably, and I think very appropriately, the short sword has now been added to the simple weapons category.
which is good. We just did the weapons episode not that long ago, and I've already forgotten. I don't think there is a D6 stabbing melee weapon in the simple weapons list.
Spear.
Ah, there you go.
And if you wanted slashing, then you still have the hand axe, which is, in theory, kind of in the same realm as the short sword as far as the damage and some of its attributes are concerned. Possibly better because you have the whole option to throw it, but it was a finesse
but this one gives
weapon.
You that finesse. Yes, there we go. That's what I was thinking of.
That's the big game changer, because previously the only finesse weapon that was listed under the simple weapons category was the dagger.
Which, as you recall, I love the dagger, but that's a D4. We can do better.
That's a D4, the smallest damage die in the game. So
that is good, but it could be better.
I am personally very excited about the short sword being added in. Starting equipment doesn't really do much for me, so I'm just kind of breeze through that, if that's okay, and move on to multi-classing, which is the exact same as it was in 5th edition. I don't believe there's anything special here. Tell me on Discord if I'm wrong.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the core of the Bard class. Their signature feature is their Bardic Inspiration, right?
Bardic, Twinspiration. Oh, right.
No, Bardic Inspiration, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The other lesser version. Right. And Bardic Inspiration has actually changed significantly in this playtest material. I know that there are a lot of people who are excited about it and a lot of people who are very trepidatious about it. I don't know if this is going to be the final version that appears in 1D&D, but if it is very different and very divisive. To start off with, the size of your Bardic Inspiration die is the same. It is still a D6 starting at level 1, and it will increase as you go. But the number you get is quite different.
This one hurts initially, and you will see why I think this is a problem as we go down through the features and see some of the other changes. I was saying in the last episode, you are going to see a lot more features in 1D&D tied to your character's proficiency bonus. And now, the Bardic Inspiration die is tied to your proficiency bonus. The number of Bardic Inspiration dice that your character has is equivalent to their proficiency bonus. And that bonus does not go up terribly quickly.
Yikes. Yes, starting out making a level 1 Bard in 5th edition, you could, using point buy, or rolling for your own stats if you roll well, you could start with an 18 in your charisma stat. That's important because that is a +4 charisma modifier. And your charisma used to be how your number of Bardic Inspiration dice was determined, how many uses you got per long rest. Starting out with 4 at level 1 felt pretty good. Now, in 1D&D, that number is halved, going off of your proficiency bonus, meaning that you only get 2 per long rest now. And as Rob said, that number does not increase very quickly. If you're waiting to get 4 uses of Bardic Inspiration, you're going to be waiting until level 9 to get as many uses as you had at level 1 in 5th edition.
Right, jumping from a number equal to your charisma modifier and tying it to your proficiency bonus means a slow return. You will eventually have more than it is possible per the rules to have, right? Your charisma taps out at a 20 without some kind of magic item to give you more. That would give you 5 Bardic Inspiration dice. With the proficiency bonus, it will eventually get up to a 6. But, man, starting with 2 really hurts, especially since it's going to be doing cooler things now. You're going to be more excited to use them, and having to be that chintzy about when they get used is gonna kinda suck, in my opinion.
Right. So when I play a bard, maxing my charisma stat is a priority for me. So by level 4, I would usually have a 20 charisma, which is a +5 charisma modifier, meaning that I would have 5 uses of Bardic Inspiration, right? In order to get 5 uses of Bardic Inspiration, now I would have to wait until 14th level to get what I used to be able to get at 4th level. And as Rob was saying, proficiency bonus will eventually eclipse that. That happens at 17th level. I don't know about you. I've never played a 17th level character.
Certainly not one who came by it honest.
And Bardic Inspiration is such a useful feature. I want to be slinging this thing left and right. And having that number limited does feel bad, especially when they make it this freaking cool. So let's talk about how it has changed, not how they have shortchanged you.
So, the biggest and most immediately felt change is that you don't use it on your turn anymore. You're not using it as a bonus action, you're now using Bardic Inspiration as a reaction. You don't use it in preparation for a success, you use it in response to a failure. You sling out some words of advice, hum a little ditty, do a little jig, and someone within 60 feet of you can add your Bardic Inspiration die to a failed D20 test. Which again, D20 test is a broad category now that didn't exist in 5th edition. They add the number to their roll, potentially turning their failure into a success. You are in control of when it's used. You will make sure that it is effective every time, or at least give yourself the best possible shot. And now, there's no chance of you giving it to someone and them just wasting it.
Or forget that they have it and just not use it. What seems like a very innocent change on the surface is actually multifaceted and has a lot of implications for how Bardic Inspiration can be used. As a pro, you don't have to prepare to use it. You can now dispense your Bardic Inspiration as a reaction when a test is failed. But for those 5e bards who were proactive, they could pre-administer Bardic Inspiration to multiple members of the party and then allow them all to use it simultaneously against, say, a major saving throw. Like, if you're getting hit with a Dragon's Breath and a lot of people are failing their dexterity saving throws, you can now only pick one of them to help. Whereas previously, had you spread the love a little bit, you would be able to help multiple party members. That's just not an option anymore. Secondly, you're never going to waste a Bardic Inspiration die. No one's ever going to forget it. You are dispensing it when it is needed.
Right. It's now first aid instead of preventative care.
Ooh, first aid is a good way to think about this, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The other choice thing about this is that now you get to make that decision, okay? You have given the Bardic Inspiration to the Paladin so that when they inevitably fail a dexterity saving throw, they can save themselves a lot of that damage, and instead they're just using it to hit more. That's a little bit disappointing, you know? They are not using it for what you hoped they would. That option is not on the table anymore. It's up to you as the bard, as the person who's handing it out, to decide when it is administered. And I like the fact that you're gaining control, but I lament the loss of the ability to dispense it across the entirety of your group, which is probably not an option anyway because they have just gashed the number that you get to dispense per long rest. I really don't expect that change to make it, which I don't know. I'm actually kind of pessimistic about it because of how many things they're basing off your proficiency bonus, but boy, that's just such a big difference, and I hope it doesn't stick. Anyway, all of that aside, Rob, I think you mentioned that you viewed Bardic Inspiration as first aid.
It is a good transition to a entirely new way to spend your Bardic Inspiration that's not tied to a subclass. Now, every bard out there can use heal as a souped-up version of a healing word as a reaction. Now, immediately after another creature, it still can't be you. It can't be you for either of these features. It has to be somebody else. Another creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear takes damage. You can use your reaction to roll your Bardic Inspiration die and heal that creature by that number. This is only ever going to be used when someone goes to 0 hit points, but it can be used whenever someone goes to 0 hit points.
Yes, and that is just the coolest way to be able to use this Bardic Inspiration die, because you know the only thing that didn't make Healing Word even more broken is that you had to wait until your turn to use your bonus action to heal them, right? Now, you can heal them on their turn and make it as if they never went down in the first place.
It's also categorically a bigger die than Healing Word was. It doesn't cost your spell slots. It arguably costs you something more precious, but neither here nor there. It's still an option. It's a tool in your utility belt. Now, with Healing Word, you do get to add your Charisma modifier to it. That gives you a safe number. You're never going to be rolling a 1, but the maximum potential is pretty high for a D6, and it gets better as you level up.
So, let me paint a picture for you. You and your party are fighting a Tlexolotl, which is a huge elemental that has a feature called Fire Aura, which says a creature that touches the Tlexolotl or hits it with a melee attack while within 5 feet of it takes 2d6 fire damage. Let's say that your barbarian runs in and starts wailing on this thing while he has low health. On his turn, he makes his first melee attack and goes down. As a bard, you can use your reaction to use one of your Bardic Inspiration die to heal him while it is still his turn, and allow him to finish making the rest of his attacks. That's just insane.
I don't think I can't call to mind anyway. I can't think of another reaction healing spell or ability. This is a pretty big deal.
And I can see why, if they're going to make it that good, that they would want to limit its uses. I lament the loss of being able to use it on skill checks and saving throws and things like that, but I do understand wanting to limit this healing factor.
You still can use it on those saving throws and whatnot. You just have to use it when they fail.
Yeah, I didn't say you couldn't, because you only get to do it twice. But the ability to do this healing, which, of course, as you said, is completely wasted if you use it on someone before they go down, the power of being able to use it when they do go down is just, quite frankly, ridiculous.
So, Bardic Inspiration power up, Bardic Inspiration uses down. All right, let's move on to the other cool thing that bards get to do, spellcasting. It's the first spellcaster we're getting a look at in 1D&D, and yeah, they front-loaded it with some changes, hoo boy. Something that I know that's really exciting you, and frankly is exciting me as well, is they're changing the way that bards bring spells into battle. Instead of having them choose spells that they know by heart, like a sorcerer does and like a bard does in 5th edition, they are transitioning to being able to prepare them on a daily basis like we're used to seeing clerics, paladins, and druids do.
Yes, and prepared spells is the best thing about casters in 5th edition, in my opinion at least. When I play a sorcerer, I love the fact that I get to use metamagic. I hate the fact that I'm limited by my number of spells known. I would relish the opportunity to be able to reselect my spells on a daily basis. Even having something like a wizard spellbook where you have to basically pay for that privilege is preferable to me than being locked into a choice that I might regret for multiple levels.
And that is a good point. We don't get to prepare from a fraction of a list like a wizard does. We get access to the whole thing, the whole arcane spell list, but we do have to limit ourselves to particular schools of magic. But I feel like this is still a step up. If you know what you're going to be doing that day, if you're expecting to get into a fight, if you're expecting to help rebuild the town, if you're expecting to stay in the tavern, you can prepare accordingly. That's huge for the bard.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of excited to see the spell schools matter to someone who isn't a wizard. Now, admittedly, every class had a selection of spells that they could choose from, and it was class specific. You had the sorcerer spells, the warlock spells, the wizard spells, but I'm excited to have them simplify that by just saying you have access to the arcane spell school and you can prepare any spell from the divination, enchantment, illusion, or transmutation lists. Spell schools actually matter now, and I kind of like the way that they have approached that. It's a lot easier to understand for me because I don't have to consult a chart every time. I mean, I guess I still have to consult a chart, but it's at least one chart.
Initially, this was a little irksome to me, because the sad things about playing an Eldritch Knight or playing the Arcane Trickster is that you have to choose from particular schools of magic, and it's not that fun to be pigeonholed in this way, I suppose. But a couple of other changes are really softening that blow. First of all, it's the Arcane spell list, not the Bard spell list. You have access within those schools of magic to things that you didn't have access to before. And I'm not actually that upset with the particular schools that are assigned to bards. Enchantment, illusion, divination, and transmutations are some of my favorite ones in the game, especially when I am playing a bard. I think it's a thematically good choice. But I was initially upset that I am losing signature bard spells like Thunder Wave. That I think every bard I've ever played has taken that spell, because it's just so good. It's their answer to a lot of the basic damage spells out there for other classes. But softening that blow again, some spells that we think we remember from 5th edition have jumped to a different spell school. For instance, Thunderwave is transmutation now. I still have access to the spell that I want, the spell that I associate with bards, kind of my bard's signature first level take, even though I am being placed into these particular categorizations. So it's good news on good news so far.
And I think that the spells in these lists, Divination, Enchantment, Illusion, Transmutation, those were the ones that the Bards were already casting from 5th edition anyway, by and large. Like you said, there are a couple of notable exclusions.
Like Cure Wounds.
But there are also now more notable inclusions. Yeah, spells like Cure Wounds. Some of those spells have been moved to a different spell school, ones that the Bards don't have access to, but don't worry, they have a feature coming up here just at this next level that's going to take care of that for us.
Here's the problem, though, and it's the same problem we have with the Bardic Inspiration, is they're giving us too little of a good thing. So, a first-level 5th edition Bard gets up in the morning and knows 4 spells. It's the same 4 spells every day, but when they're ready to spend those 2 spell slots that they start with, they have 4 options to prepare them for various situations. The 1D&D Bard can select any spells they want every morning, but they only get to remember 2. Half as many options in the utility belt, half as many situations they can be prepared for, and that hurts. At first level, you have so little going for you that to have even less sucks.
And I think this is just the designers of 1D&D opting for a different kind of versatility. They're opening the doors of spells you can choose from and allowing you to make a more meaningful selection every day rather than making a more meaningful selection every level. They are giving you more options overall, but less per day, less per encounter. They're unlimiting your potential overall, and significantly limiting your potential day by day.
You get to choose more often, but you get to make fewer choices.
More selective. Rob and I are both kind of here and there on which way we would prefer. Personally, I feel like this really hurts at low levels, but as you increase in level, you're still going to have a good wealth of options eventually for how to spend those spell slots. Personally, I've never played a level 1 Bard. Most of my campaigns start a little bit higher, but if you do, you are going to feel this pretty significantly. Now, once you get to 3rd level, it's not going to hurt as much, because in 5th edition, as a 3rd level Bard, you would know 6 spells. And as a 3rd level Bard in 6th edition, you will be able to prepare 6 spells. So that is going to even out very quickly. And for those of us who start our campaigns at 3rd levels, I think that you're going to be happier with the newer options. So you get as many spells prepared as you have spell slots.
So that is simpler. I mean, arguably that is simpler, and you do get a boost as you go through the levels. You will be able to prepare much more. It's just that initial hump. We may see even fewer campaigns starting at early levels to have any fun with the Bard class and possibly even future classes that we explore.
I hadn't even noticed that part before. This is actually better, I think, than 5th edition, because as your level increases, you're going to get more spells. No, okay, so for example here, let's take a look at a 7th level Bard in 5th edition. You're going to have 10 spells known, and you're going to have 4 1st level slots, 3 2nd level slots, 3 3rd level slots, and 1 4th level slots. That is 11 total spell slots, 10 total spells known. In 1D&D, you are going to be able to prepare that many spells of those levels, meaning that as a 7th level Bard in 1D&D, you're going to have 11 total spells prepared from a list of all the arcane spells that meet your spell schools, meaning that as a 7th level Bard, and I'm assuming that it carries on even further after that, you're actually going to be able to prepare more spells than you did in 5th edition.
So it's going to suck initially, it's going to correct itself very quickly, and then when you get to 20th level, it's the same either way. It's 22 spells prepared, 22 spell slots. So, in the grand scheme of things, it really only sucks at those early levels. But boy howdy does it suck at that early level. Bards, hang on. Help is coming.
You know, that's one of the things that we're going to notice as a trend as we go through this, and it's one of the reasons that I said that I am not as excited about multi-classing in 1D&D, is that the further on you go, the better things get. And I don't mean that just like, you're going to get better class features later on. I mean, like, some of the class features have been moved around, and a lot of things are tied to your proficiency bonus, and then there's stuff like this, where it's just, it rewards you more for sticking with your original class than 5th edition did, which multi-classing was one of my favorite parts about 5th edition, so I'm kind of sad to see that go, and I'm hoping that it is still a viable, dare I say, favorable option in 6th edition. I'm just a little bit hesitant about that now.
And you see, sticking with my original class and getting to those cool powers quickly was my favorite part about 5th edition. And that's also a little bit disappointing in 1D&D, as we're going to be seeing, because it's going to be a little stingier with when those powers come online. They do a lot of shuffling around with when you get the class features in this one. For instance, compared to 5th edition, the expertise feat that bards typically wait till 3rd level to get in 5e is available at 2nd level. But that jack of all trades that we're used to getting at level 2 has been pushed well down the road.
So this is one of those things where you're getting a nice feature at an early level, and for multi-classing purposes, I like that. I'm not sure whether I would rather have had the expertise or the jack of all trades. I guess it depends on what sort of character concept I'm going for.
I would prefer the expertise, so that's cool.
Expertise is unchanged. It doubles your proficiency bonus on the selected skill, and you also get Songs of Restoration, as Rob said, which is different from Songs of Rest. We'll go into that in a minute, but I just want to take a second to note that level 1 and level 2 for the Bard is one of the only instances that we're going to see throughout this entire playtest packet of you getting 2 class features at the same level. Because the 1D&D playtest material seems to very intentionally spread things out to where the classes are no longer front-loaded, and to where you can expect to get something cool at every level. Not just gain access to a new spell level or anything like that. You should expect to get some sort of class feature, or subclass feature, or feat at almost every level between 1 and 20. Which was certainly not the case in 5th edition. Sometimes you'd have to wait 2 or 3 levels to get something particularly neat. So, pros and cons? But let's talk about what Song of Restoration does, since it is here at 2nd level.
Before we move on past expertise, though, let me go ahead and say this is going to be a hallmark of those expert classes, the Rogue, the Ranger, and the Bard. They're all going to get this feature, and they're probably going to get it more than once. I think the Rogue and the Ranger actually get a little earlier than the Bard. We'll cover that when we get there. But it is one of my favorite things that made the Bard and the Rogue special. It's getting shared amongst more classes. I like being good at stuff. I'm not mad about this.
I guess it's a spoiler, but the other 2 classes are going to get this at level 1, and the Bard is going to get it at level 2, which,
still earlier than level 3, like in 5e.
Right, but, God forbid that you should get 3 class features at the same level. That would just be too good, I guess.
All right, but as you were saying, Songs of Rest.
Songs of Restoration. A little bit different from the Songs of Rest that you used to have in 5th edition, because in 5th edition, it was a kind of an somewhat used, oft-forgotten mechanic whereby you got to help your party members recover a couple of hit points every time you took a short rest. Now, Songs of Restoration is being used to add healing spells to the Bard's repertoire. Because if it isn't obvious, healing spells don't really fit into the whole divination, enchantment, illusion, and transmutation schools that we mentioned earlier that the Bard can prepare spells from. So now, Bards get constant access to a couple of healing spells as they progress in level. And these do not count against the number of spells that the Bard can prepare at any given day.
So here we go. Now we have outclassed the 5e Bard with how many spells we get to bring into a fight each day. The addition of these 5 as we march towards level 10 do carry us over the hump.
And these spells are, at 2nd level, you can add Healing Word to your spell list. At 4th level, you add Lesser Restoration. 6th level adds Mass Healing Word. 8th level adds Freedom of Movement. And 10th level adds Greater Restoration. Again, these spells are added in addition to your daily selected and prepared spells. So you always have access to them.
So, first of all, goodbye Song of Rest. You had your place in the game. If you were playing a grittier game where your dungeon master actually made your hit dice matter, and I frankly do kind of enjoy that style of play, you're going to miss that feature.
And I will not.
If you were not playing that kind of game, you probably didn't use it whatsoever. But with these Songs of Restoration for the 2nd level 1D&D Bard, this gives you access to spells that the arcane spell list was never going to touch. This is the only way that a Bard is going to be getting spells like these until we get down to magical secrets much lower down. So you can't start the game with Cure Wounds, you can't start the game with Healing Word, but 2nd level, you have something to supplement using that Bardic Inspiration die, that very valuable Bardic Inspiration die that you only get 2 of for the next several levels. to be able to contribute to the healing of your party.
Yeah, let's face it, your Bardic Inspiration die categorically outclasses Healing Word. But you can now also do Healing Word in addition to that because you're going to have more spell slots than you are Bardic Inspiration die.
And Healing Word's kind of the bard healing spell anyway, isn't it? Like, the cleric's going to come and lay hands on you, the bard's going to shout at you to get your rear in gear from across the combat.
So at 3rd level, we're going to gain our Bard subclass. And in doing so, we're going to unlock our first Bard subclass feature. There is one Bard subclass included in this playtest packet, that being the Lore Bard, which is, I suppose, the bardiest of all the bards.
Certainly was in 5e.
We'll go ahead and save that for later on, since we're trying to go through this one thing at a time. Just understand that as we go through the levels, occasionally we're just going to say, and here's a Bard subclass feature. So here, at 3rd level, you get to pick your subclass, and here's a Bard subclass feature. Insert it here. Moving on to 4th level, we add in the option to select our first feat. And by first feat, I of course mean our first feat since character creation, because you get a 1st level feat at 1st level. Now you have the option to choose 4th level feats, or more 1st level feats if you really want to do that. And there's something that's really interesting about 4th level feats that are included in this playtest packet. We'll cover that when we get to it, but it's really juicy and I really like it. So here's your opportunity to get an ability score improvement or something neat to unlock an extra ability for your character concept.
Now, interestingly, feats were presented in 5th edition as optional content, as a rule you could use or not use. Here, it doesn't say ability score improvement, and you could take a feat if you were going to be using the feats rule. Here, it's you take a feat.
Yes.
And one of the feats you can take is what we know in 5e as the ability score improvement.
And what we will henceforth know in 1D&D as the ability score improvement feat, which functions identically.
And what we will know in 1D&D as the thing nobody takes, because feats got cooler, baby.
Feats did get cooler. Of course, if you want to get your bard to that 20 charisma at level 4 like I do, you'll probably be taking it at least once.
See, though, since my Bardic Inspiration die is not tied to it anymore, I'm not going to be in as much of a hurry for that. But neither here nor there.
To each their own.
5th level. 5th level is where all the martial classes are getting to attack twice. What do we get? Jack of all trades that we should have had at 2nd level, damn it.
You're not salty about this at all, are you?
I'm torn, okay? I want to have that sooner as a bard. It's one of the things that makes me cool. I don't know why it's coming in at 5th level. 5th level is when a lot of other classes come online. It's where you're getting access to your 3rd level spells. It's where you're getting access to your 2nd attack. It's the thing that makes you you. And waiting till 5th level and then getting Jack of all trades as my reward? Nah. It softens the blow that I'm getting access to 3rd level spells then, but it's just not shattering. But I do like, because again, I like playing straight classes. I like being rewarded for sticking with my class, that someone who just dips their toe into Bard for a couple of levels doesn't get access to such a cool feature.
Well, for those of you like Rob who are a little disappointed that you have to wait until 5th level to get such an iconic Bard feature, don't forget that at 5th level you do get your proficiency bonus boosted up to 3, meaning that you're getting an additional use of your integral Bardic Inspiration die. In addition, your Bardic Inspiration die is also going to bump up to a D8, and in addition to that, you're going to unlock the ability to cast and prepare 2 3rd level spells each long rest. So 5th level is still a big deal, even if you're not getting... What did the 5th level bard used to get? Even if you don't get Font of Inspiration, which is my favorite Bardic Inspiration feature.
God. We're about to get to talk about it. I'm going to try and hold on.
Okay. Don't worry. Font of Inspiration is still functionally in the bard, but you do have to wait till later to get it. But regardless, 5th level is still a big power bump for our little bard boys and little bard girls, and it's still something to get excited about.
I will say, before we move on, Jack of all trades works like you remember it did. It's called the same thing. It works the same way. If you liked the old Jack of all trades, you're good. If you didn't like the old Jack of all trades, it's back. Sorry.
Don't know what to tell you.
Hey guys, it's Rob. Correction time. So, as we said, Steve and I were just doing our first impressions with this material, and that we might make some mistakes, and we did. Jack of all trades, as it exists in 1D&D, is actually somewhat different from how it is in 5e. In 5e, it applies to all ability checks, including things like your rolls for Counterspell or your initiative. However, in 1D&D, Jack of all trades only applies to ability checks that include a skill proficiency that doesn't already include your proficiency bonus. So it only works on skills. Oops.
Moving on to 6th level, Insult Subclass Feature here. Moving on to 7th level, we finally get that Font of Inspiration, now called Font of Bardic Inspiration.
Thank you for really trying to separate Inspiration and Bardic Inspiration in this edition. In fact, they're calling it Heroic Inspiration in this document as opposed to what they did in the last playtest material, and they're changing the way that works. We'll get there later.
Right, because being a bard or having a bard as a friend doesn't make you a hero.
Hey, I'd at least argue the first thing. Anyway, finally we get back our uses of the Bardic Inspiration die on a short rest. Up until this point, we have had exactly 3 uses of our cool new Bardic Inspiration die per long rest, per adventuring day. We have had to be very careful where we spend them. Now, all we need is a box of Triscuits and a warm blanket, and we're good to use those 3 over again. So effectively, we have more than 3. Now we're fine. Now the number that we get is not as significant, because we can get them back while the Warlock is getting their spells back, assuming that Warlocks will still work the same way.
Functionally, what happens is that you're going to start getting all of your Bardic Inspiration uses back on a short or long rest. If, as 5th edition states, you should generally expect to get about 2 short rests per adventuring day, this functionally means you're going from about 3 per day to about 9 per day, which is a pretty big step up.
Such a load off. And furthermore, there's a cool new thing for the Bardic Inspiration die that further extends your uses. If I'm playing a bard in 1D&D, I can't wait to get to level 7. And I wish this came in a little sooner, but with as cool as you have made level 5 come out to be, I know why it's not any sooner, but man.
Yeah. I feel like this is Wizards of the Coast trying to make me okay with pushing Fonts of Bardic Inspiration back to level 7. And I see what you're doing there, and it almost works. I'd really rather have this 2 levels earlier, but at least you're giving me a little something extra to try to make it worth the wait. I appreciate the effort at least.
So now, whenever any creature rolls one of your Bardic Inspiration dice, which at this level is going to be a D8, if they roll a 1, sad, maybe it doesn't help much, but you don't expend the use of your Bardic Inspiration. You can save that to the next turn, to the next reaction, to the next time someone's in trouble.
Which is pretty good. I mean, it's a low odds that they're going to row a 1, sure, but they get to keep that +1, and you get to keep your Bardic Inspiration die. It does kind of safeguard you from using one of these precious resources on one of your teammates and then having a case of the feel-bads when it doesn't end up doing anything impactful. It at least reduces the likelihood of that situation occurring.
It further extends how many of your Bardic Inspiration dice you have the potential to roll in an adventuring day, and it further ensures that you're not wasting them. Furthermore, if you're only ever using it for that heal feature, 1 hit point is enough to stop someone being dead, or unconscious, rather. So if you roll a 1, they get back up, they keep doing their thing, and you're ready to do it again next round.
Oh my god, you'd actually kind of like to roll 1s on those, wouldn't you?
I mean, maybe. I mean, they probably wouldn't like it, but you might, Yeah,
I mean, how much of a difference is, 8 hit points really going to make in the course of a combat? But how much of a difference is being able to pick up another teammate over the course of a combat going to make? That could be pretty clutch. So, like I said, I'm not happy that this is at level 7, but thank you for the little bonus.
For having to wait this long, I think they made it as attractive a class feature as they could have made it. Now, that's a huge deal, but we're not going to give that time to sink in. We're going to keep moving, and
well, the next 3 levels are really fast and really easy. So let's just go ahead and burn through those. Next level, you get a feat Great, feats are good. You get another one. 9th level, your proficiency bonus goes up to 4, which I'm going to say that every time it happens because I feel like for a bard it is more impactful than, necessarily everyone else. A lot of stuff is tied to that proficiency bonus now. In addition to your proficiency bonus increasing, you also get yet another instance of expertise.
Which is a level earlier than the 5e bards would have gotten their second instance of expertise. So, that's something.
So, that's good. That is an improvement to someone who sticks with a bard for this long. 10th level, insert subclass feature heal. But wait. Let's not entirely skip over it, because at 10th level you also get your Bardic Inspiration die increased to a D10.
Now, normally at 10th level, the 5th edition bard is enjoying magical secrets. One of the coolest things about playing a bard, and one of the reasons that lore bards were so popular in 5e, because you get to do it more than the regular bards do, and significantly sooner. But now we finally have it. We can pick from any class's spell list. Oh wait, classes don't have spell lists anymore.
Right, yeah, now we're getting to choose a spell list from either Arcane, Divine, or Primal.
I guess you could do Arcane again. I would definitely be more excited for the ones that I had no access to, but I guess there could be Arcane spells that fall outside my normal parameters that I would like to grab.
Right, like, say, Fireball or Counterspell. Those are going to be arcanes that don't fall under your normal spell schools that you generally have access to. So if it's me, I'm going to be looking at just the other half of the arcane spell list that I previously couldn't select from, and that's probably where I'm going to be getting my 11th level magical secrets from. But notably, this is a strict improvement from the 5e magical secrets, because in 5e, when you selected them, you selected 2 spells from the entire game. Now, you are selecting instead not spells, but a list. And then every day when you wake up, you get to prepare 2 spells from that list. So today, I can prepare Counterspell and Fireball. And tomorrow, I can prepare Counterspell and Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, whatever it may be, this is really opening things up. The fact that bards prepare their spells now open this door wide. You don't have to make a super significant decision that you're going to be stuck with for the rest of the game. You get the opportunity every morning to raid somebody else's spell list, and that's just cool.
Because you're unlocking this feature at 11th level, that means that you can now prepare spells from your chosen tradition, your chosen list, be it Primal, Arcane, or Divine. You can now prepare spells of up to 6th level. Whereas previously in 5e, you could only grab magical secret spells that were up to 5th level. So it's another one of those things where, yeah, you have to wait a little longer for it, but it just got strictly better.
That is a good point that I hadn't considered, that 6th level spells are on the table now. That does open it's opening wide a larger door than I thought that we were about to pass through.
Right. I really want to just sit down and go through these spells and figure out which ones that I would like to take at this level, but it's a lot. There's a lot of changes to the spell school list and everything. So we're not going to do that right now, but feel free to be thinking that way. And, maybe at some point I'll come back through and take a look at those and say, hey, these are the magical secrets that I personally would unlock at this level if you chose this spell school or that spell school or that sort of thing. But the point is that you don't have to make a decision like you used to. You now just have to pick the school and you can reselect daily. That's just huge. I know I've said how excited I am about that probably 3 times by now, but this more than anything else has me excited to play Bards. Well, this and probably that feature where they get to heal using their Bardic Inspiration die. Those are the 2 big things for me right now.
So from there we go on to 12th level. You get another feat. Stuff gets better.
Get another feat.
13th level, the class doesn't hand you anything, but that proficiency bonus goes up and you unlock a new level of spells. So that's always fun. 14th level, subclass feature again. Whatever subclass you chose, and we will be taking a look at the lore bard here in a minute, you get something else cool from them. And level 15, as we said, is magical secrets again.
15th level is huge, guys. This is the biggest level in all of barddom. Okay? Not only does your Bardic Inspiration die increase to a D12, you also unlock 8th level spells, and you also unlock further magical secrets, which means you get to pick another of the 3 spell lists. Basically, when you become a 15th level bard, you get to pick what you're not good at. Because you have 2 out of 3 spell schools that you can daily prepare 2 spells from each.
Yes, it is important to know that it has to be a different spell school than the choice that you made at level 11. And while the 5th edition Bard got to make their first pick at 10th level and 14th, it's the same amount of time. It's a 4-level gap. It's 11 to 15. And like you said, just like we get access to the 6th level spells at 11th level for waiting 1 extra level up to be able to get access to it, waiting from 4th to 15th gives us access to those 8th level spells. These are practically the capstone spells for other classes. Other than 9th level spells, the biggest magic other classes can have access to, we can take anything else we want now as a bard.
We sure can. And like I said, the fact that you get to pick 2 out of 3 spell lists to prepare spells from daily is insane. The number of spells that you have access to. I don't know. I'm starting to get into the point where I can only express my feelings in grunts because words are now failing me. It's so many spells. It's crazy to me that you're now like, hey, as a 15th level bard, I'm going to pick one thing to not be good at. Because I can literally cast any other spell in the game that is not of 9th level.
After 15th level, things start to slow down for the bard. 16th level, you get a feat again. We're used to that. That's been consistent with 5e. 17th level, you unlock your 9th level spells. Hooray! That's as good as your spell list is ever going to look, but that means that you have 22 spells to prepare early, compared to 20th level in 5e.
17th level also gives you, as we mentioned before, that +6 proficiency bonus, meaning you now have 6 uses of Bardic Inspiration per short or long rest.
Which is kicking ass now at that D12.
I guess they thought that is good enough. You get 9th level spells, you get 6 uses of Bardic Inspiration per short rest. You don't need any other additional features because that's all you get at 17th level. But I don't want to minimize that. That is enough. That is a lot. Moving on to 18th level, we notice something very strange and different from 5th edition. Because at 18th level, a bard used to get another instance of magical secrets. Now, they get what used to be the 20th level bard feature. It's setting a precedent that now, at 18th level, classes are going to start to get what used to be, or what is now a new version of, their capstone ability. For the bard, that is Superior Bardic Inspiration, which states that when you roll initiative, you regain 2 expended uses of Bardic Inspiration.
Let me tell you the 2 reasons I'm mad about this.
Okay, I was going to tell you why I thought it was good, but yes, please, go ahead.
First off, how often are you rolling initiative multiple times between rests, just in your games?
Well, my games are your games, so that doesn't actually happen very often. But, maybe if you were doing a dungeon crawl or something, you clear a room, you move to the next room, boom, 2 more uses of Bardic Inspiration. But it depends on the style of game you're playing, I guess.
It does, and that means that, depending on the style of game you're playing, this 18th level ability kind of stinks. Because all you have to do to get 6 uses of it back is hug a blanket and suck your thumb for an hour. As opposed to getting 2 back just because you rolled initiative. I'm not thrilled about it. It's not worthless, it's just not exciting when you realize that magical secrets at 18th level meant that the 5th edition bards got to take 9th level spells from other classes. This is how Scanlan was going to use Wish in Critical Role Campaign 1. Being able to steal ultimate power from other classes was incredible. Arguably too good for an 18th level ability. It was so impactful. And I'm not saying that they should have kept it, but I'm saying that I feel its absence.
Yeah, there really is no substitute for being able to take Wish as a spellcaster capable of 9th level spells. But I will say that this is a marked, significant improvement from the Superior Bardic Inspiration that was presented to us in 5th edition. For one, that feature was not granted until 20th level, as previously mentioned. That offered you the ability to regain a single use of your Bardic Inspiration if you had 0 when you rolled initiative. The new version comes in at level 18, and it offers you 2, regardless of whether you're sitting on empty or not.
And let's also remember they are better Bardic Inspiration dice. They're still D12s, but they do cooler things and work more effectively than the 5th edition Bardic Inspiration dice did. So yes, it's good. I think Superior Inspiration as a 20th level capstone ability in 5e was really lame.
A lot of capstone abilities in 5e were pretty lame, to be honest.
But here, as an 18th level thing, it's not so bad. I just know what I lost to get here.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it is better than being able to unlock any 9th level spell, but it is a lot better than your old capstone, and you get it earlier. I'm pretty happy with this. Although, you know, like you said, losing access to Wish is a pretty big blow. Because, I mean, really, what other spell were you going to pick with your magical secret?
Right.
I mean, let's face it. Once you get Wish, you already have access to every other spell in the game by virtue of Wish's spell text.
Right.
So there's really no other choice.
Correction, Rob, back again. After recording the episode and discussing it, Steve noticed that bards do get access to 9th level spells from other classes thanks to their magical secrets. They don't get them immediately, but since they prepare spells every morning from these spell lists, when they get access to 9th level spells, they can raid those spell lists for their 9th level spells as well. We were just so stuck in our ways thinking of how bards used to work, since I'm normally so familiar with that class in 5e, that we missed this. And let me tell you, we are excited all over again to be bards casting Wish in 1D&D. Sorry, back to the episode.
But anyway, I don't feel like we need to belabor that point. It's a great 18th level feature. It's not as good as the old 18th level feature, but I am extremely happy with what it is.
Moving beyond 18th level, you get a feat at level 19, and you get a feat at level 20, but it is a special sort of feat. Rather than having a class-locked capstone ability, as it is presented in this playtest document, every class gets access to an epic boon feat at 20th level.
Players out there, you've probably never heard of an epic level boon. You want to know why? Because it was hidden in the Dungeon Master's Guide for 5th edition. These were additional abilities that Dungeon Masters could reward players with who stuck around after 20th level to give them some illusion of progression. After they gained so much experience prior to getting 20th level, they could unlock one of these abilities. And that was intended to keep them going, to make things interesting for them still, because after 20th level, what else are you going to unlock? Nothing, as far as the player's handbook is concerned. So I don't blame you for not having heard of these things. And they're not all created equal, but they are all pretty cool.
And since every class is getting equal opportunity to take an epic boon feat, it makes them, somehow more appealing to me. I can be what I want to be at 20th level, and so can you. I'm not restricted by the class. I am able to be the 20th level bard that can do this, or the 20th level bard that can do that. And we'll get to what those things are when we get down to the feats. But I like that, especially since there was such a disparity in effectiveness and power level between capstone abilities in 5e.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Capstone abilities in 5es, by and large, sucked. There were a few that were worth sticking around for. I'm thinking specifically of, say, Paladins. And, there's a couple of more, too, sure. But these epic level boons, the fact that you get to select from them means that you can pass on all of the whiffs, and you can pick the one that really suits your character. You can pick the one that you like the most. You can pick the most powerful one. You can pick the 20th level capstone feature from a list, of course, but of your choice. And you can make it as impactful as you want it to be. In 5th edition, I did not feel like there was really any reason to stick around till 20th level as most classes. Now there is a genuine incentive for sticking it through as a single class the whole way. So this, of course, further disincentivizes multiclassing for those people out there who are actually going to take a character all the way to 20th level. Of course, I'm never going to have the chance to do that, but someone probably does. And this will actually make it worth it for them. This is such a great design choice. They've given us a couple of epic level boons to look at in this playtest document that we'll cover later. I hope they give us more when the official books come out. And I am very, very excited to someday maybe have the possibility of getting something good at level 20 as any class in the game.
Yeah, no argument here. I think this is a strict improvement. And there are a lot of things in this document that people will have mixed feelings on. You can see I've already had mixed feelings on basically every change they've made. But this is just, it's good game design.
I agree. Good game design. All right, that covers our bards from level 1 through 20. Let's take a look at the rest of this section and just kind of wrap up this new perspective class that's presented to us in 1D&D. The next section that they have here in the playtest document is called Prepared Bard Spells. This is just a section for those who maybe don't have as much experience playing 5th edition, who are newer to the game, who don't know what all of these spells do and what all of these words mean.
And apparently are unwilling to read and learn.
Well, you know what? That takes time. Maybe you just want to try out D&D, and this gives you options at every level for recommended spells to take as your bard. And these are pretty bardy bard spells. They are pretty classic choices. They're not necessarily like the optimal choices. They're not necessarily the best one to do a certain thing, but they are pretty, what's the word I'm looking for here? They're pretty stereotypical.
They're standard.
Yeah, pretty classic. There we go. They're pretty classic bard spells. We're not going to go through them at every level, don't worry.
And I will credit 1D&D, at least this playtest document, trying to lure new people into the hobby. It has done that at every stage. We haven't talked about it, but every time it's talking about you getting skill proficiencies, it says, here are some classic bard choices. You want equipment? Here's some classic bard choices. You want expertise? Here's some things you might consider being doubly good at. It really holds your hand through every step of the process, which you are free to ignore.
And after this, we move on to the one included Bard subclass, which is the aforementioned College of Lore, previously considered possibly one of the strongest subclasses in the game, I believe. Certainly one of the strongest Bard subclasses.
And the reason was getting magical secrets at 6th level, not having to get into that double-digit levels, not having getting into the higher tier play to be able to snipe spells from other lists. That's gone. That is straight up gone now.
Spoilers!
So, the Lore Bard does not excite me. I'll just put it that way. Lore Bard was my go-to choice for a Bard, and it was because of that 6th level ability. That is different now, and here's what we have instead.
I find it ironic that you wanted to bury the lead on your feelings on Bards in general, but just right off the bat, I don't like Lore Bards.
I don't like Lore Bards. So, when you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you do get 3 bonus proficiencies. I like being good at stuff. I'm waiting for Jack of all trades to come along at 5th level now, so this is a really good helping hand to have me be the guy who's good at stuff.
Yep.
I will take that. So, the Lore Bard, as it's presented in 1D&D, and I actually think this is good flavor, gains proficiency in 3 intelligence skills.
Yeah.
You can't put them anywhere that you want. You're the Lore Bard, you know stuff.
Right. You get lore skills. And that is something that we're going to get to much later in the document, is that they are now relegating certain skills to be classified as search skills and certain skills to be classified as study skills. And the Lore Bard, as someone who has studied, gains proficiency in 3 of the study-based skills.
And if you wanted to go ahead and be that kind of character at 1st and 2nd level, and you've already taken one of those proficiencies, you do get to choose something new. So they're not robbing you of anything for being a level 1 bard who knew stuff about magic. So that's good.
Also at 3rd level, you gain the Cutting Words feature. It functions very similarly to what you're used to in 5e. When a creature that you can see within 60 feet of you succeeds on an ability check or an attack roll, you can use your reaction to expend one of your uses of Bardic Inspiration, roll that die and subtract the number from the creature's roll, potentially turning it into a failure. So this is basically reverse Bardic Inspiration. Here's the thing, though. Bardic Inspiration is really good now. And I don't know if I can justify at 3rd level using one of those precious uses on Cutting Words. Old Bardic Inspiration, I had more of them, and they weren't as good. They couldn't be used to heal my downed allies on their turns. And so something like Cutting Words was kind of appealing. Maybe I would use a couple of my Bardic Inspiration die for that. Personally, it's just too good as written for me to really consider using Cutting Words. It is better for me to let my party member get downed and then res them than it is for me to potentially cause an attack to miss and then watch them go down anyway.
And if you played a Lore Bard in 5e, you may have noticed a slight omission there. Used to, you could take that Bardic Inspiration die roll and shave that off of the damage dealt to a creature around you. No doing that anymore. It's got to be the D20 roll.
Yeah, but, to my point from a second ago, who cares if you can take it off the damage roll, if you can just let them die and then pick them back up? Personally, if I do a bard, I'm probably not going to pick a lore bard because they don't get the magical secrets. You've already spoiled that for us, and cutting words kind of sucks now. Not functionally, but by comparison to what you can already do.
Well, you do like how we use that Bardic Inspiration die now. You just said as much. At 6th level, you don't get magical secrets, but you do get cooler Bardic Inspiration die, presumably, than the other subclasses will get. When someone rolls your Bardic Inspiration die as a 6th level or higher lore bard, they have advantage on your Bardic Inspiration die roll.
Yeah.
I mean, effectively, they roll it twice and they take the better result, which is going to take the sting out of re-rolling ones, which you're going to get later as any bard. But it does up the potential to max that die out.
Right. It makes it a lot better to use on saving throws and attack rolls and skill checks and things like that. However, it doesn't do much when you're using it to heal. And boy, I'm just really looking at that healing as being like the way to go now.
It does do much. It's going to let you heal more, but if we're using it when we know we're going to be using it, when someone is going down, 1 hit point is enough.
Right. You can make it as cool as you want to use it for not healing. I'm probably still going to be using it for healing, honestly. And I've never said that as any character ever before. I mean, the bards are just so good at healing now. I'm very interested to see what they eventually end up doing with the cleric, because surely it has to be cooler than this, right?
Well, I mean, of course, they're going to get access to all the traditional healing spells, but I digress.
Yeah. Cunning Inspiration, 6th level lore bard feature. It's good. It's better. It's a strict improvement. Heck of a lot more excited about that than cutting words. I'll tell you that much.
And hey, 1 level more than that, 7th level, is when we get that bigger die and when we start using it a lot more, when we start getting that font of Bardic Inspiration.
Yeah, that's true.
It's teeing you up for something good. It's just not magical secrets. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. At 7th level, I will start considering using my inspiration die to actually inspire rather than to heal, and at that point I'll be very excited about cunning inspiration. Speaking of improving the things you can do with your bardic inspiration die and how much I didn't like cutting words before, at 10th level your subclass feature as a lore bard is improved cutting words.
Right. Your bardic inspiration die finally deals damage.
Woo!
If you use that cutting words feature, which Steve is already disincentivized from using and does not think you will be making great use of, if you ever deign to use your Bardic Inspiration die in such a way, you will deal psychic damage now to the target that you affected to the tune of the number that you rolled on that die, plus your charisma modifier, which by this level we've got to assume is pretty good.
Okay, this is the first time that I've been conflicted about cutting words, because as a 10th level bard, that is a D10. The damage that you can get by using improved cutting words on someone is equal to a single use of Agonizing Blast, Eldritch Blast. It is a D10 plus your charisma modifier, and you can do this on top of debuffing their rolls as a reaction on their turn. That's not nothing. That is technically something. I could see myself finally at 10th level using the cutting words feature now that it is improved cutting words. I don't know how often I will do it, but I could do it.
I will give it this. It is a very synergistic class and subclass combination. By the time you get the improved cutting words, if you roll a 1 on that die, you don't expend the use of Bardic Inspiration because you got that at 7th level. Mm-hmm. If you roll a number that you don't like on that die, you can roll it again and take the better result because that's what you got at 6th level. So the odds of that improved cutting words being impactful and that damage being not insubstantial, it's pretty good. I mean, it's fair. It's more than fair.
And you get them back on a short rest, so it's a little bit more freeing to use them offensively because you'll still have a few to use defensively or to use to bring up down teammates. And there's a reasonable expectation that after a couple of encounters, you're going to be getting some back.
Right. And if you save your buddy from taking 26 points of damage from a giant's warhammer and get to deal 13 damage because you rolled well on your Bardic Inspiration die, that's a pretty good swing, all told.
Yeah. At that point, you're finally getting to the point then where that is probably empirically better than waiting for them to go down and picking them back up. If they don't have any reactions to lessen the damage themselves, then, now is your time. Improved Cutting Words is going to be something of significance. It's going to be meaningful. It's going to have an impact on the combat in a way that I personally just really don't think that the original Cutting Words did.
Right. And, I'm still not happy about Lore Bards. That has not changed, but I see what they're doing, right? They're making your Bardic Inspiration die as a Lore Bard very cool and as useful as it can be.
Well, here's the way I feel about Lore Bards, is that I don't think they're bad. It's that I remember what the Lore Bard was.
Yeah.
They're leaning more into the customization of your Bardic Inspiration die, which is really making this a bardier bard. As Chris Perkins said in his interview with Todd Kenrick, that this is going to be the bardiest bard. They're just doubling down on existing mechanics, ways to use your Bardic Inspiration die, how effective those Inspiration die are going to be. And I like what they're doing. They just don't have more magical secrets.
So, 14th level, Peerless Skill. We had Peerless Skill at 14th level as the old Lore Bard. We have it at this one too. It is better than the old Peerless Skill.
Let's go ahead and compare them. As a 14th level Lore Bard in 5th edition, the way that it would work is that when you make an ability check, you, not someone else, you get to use one of your Bardic Inspiration die. This doesn't cost you a bonus action to dispense it. That doesn't cost you a reaction or anything like that to use it. You may just opt to add your Bardic Inspiration die to your ability check. And you can make that roll after you roll the d20 rather than having to do it beforehand like you do for other people. You do have to do it before the DM tells you whether it succeeds or fails, but that's really the only qualification on when you can use it for yourself.
Which was a pretty cool thing to have as a Lore Bard. You finally get to do something for yourself. It's pretty great. And it does have to be an ability check. It can't be for a saving throw or an attack roll like it can be for your friends, but it's still for you. It's so you can show off. It's so you don't have to fail being good at things. Still has to be an ability check in 1D&D.
Yeah.
Still costs you a use of your Bardic Inspiration. Doesn't cost any action, just like it didn't in 5e. The good news here is that if, after using your Bardic Inspiration die to improve your ability check, the Dungeon Master tells you that you still fail, you don't have to spend that Bardic Inspiration die. You still have it to do other things with.
And that maybe takes a little bit of the sting out of potentially using it for yourself, right? Because, again, you have more limited uses than you used to.
You're not being selfish. I'm not doing it for you guys now. I'm doing it for me. And look, if I succeed, we succeeded. Hooray, great, we did the thing. And if we fail, it's like I never used it.
Right. It's not taking away one of these precious resources, because I guarantee you that in 1D&D, your party's going to care every time you drop one of those Bardic Inspiration dice. They're going to take note, and you're probably going to receive feedback. It is interesting that this ability does specify an ability check, where a lot of features in 1D&D just say a D20 test. I guess it's probably a little much for me to expect an ability called Peerless Skill to apply to saving throws. But
yes, that is for the Peerless saving throw that will come with the Valor Bard, probably.
I really wish that it said saving throws, though, because that's where I want to see the Bardic Inspiration used. Like, if I said it earlier, in 5th edition, if I hand out my Bardic Inspiration to someone, I'm not doing it so that they can hit with their longsword, okay? I'm doing it so that they can resist dominate person. I really feel like it's a waste to see them use it just to get in, another 15 or 20 damage on their attack using Great Weapon Master or whatever. That's like a best case scenario, is they're hitting with Great Weapon Master or something. So the fact that I now get to decide when it goes out is a big improvement for me, as I mentioned before, because I can give it to them on their saving throws.
Oh, it also is, and I didn't really even think about this. I was so focused on the fact that it moved to reactions that I did not think about how much more freedom a bard is going to have with their bonus action now. You're probably going to see a lot more bards fighting with light weapons and taking advantage of the 2-weapon fighting. You're going to see a lot more bards casting spells with their bonus actions and maybe a cantrip with the action. I don't know if they're going to change the way spellcasting works in the next edition, but that is going to make a bard's turn more effective. You're not going to have to be considering if I want to inspire someone with my bonus action.
Actually, it's funny that you should mention that, because in 1D&D, it is specified that making an offhand attack is done now as part of the attack action, meaning that every character has more options to do with their bonus action now.
Oh, gosh, you're right.
Or certainly all the ones that we're dual wielding. So this is going to free up things like, hey, you want to multiclass into Bard Rogue? Now you can use Cunning Action to dash, disengage, or hide. Or you can use some bonus action spells and then cast some cantrips as your main action, which is a great reason to go Warlock. I'm always looking for reasons to go Warlock, because then you can Healing Word and Eldritch Blast someone. But anyway, neither here nor there. Opening up a bonus action on your turn is never a bad thing. So I'm sure that you can find something to do with that now that you're using your reactions for Bardic Inspiration.
Okay, so that's everything we have on Bards for 1D&D. Steve, what do you think?
Are we talking about as opposed to the 5th edition Bard?
Just what do you think?
There's a lot to be excited about in the 1D&D Bard as presented here in this playtest packet. There's a lot of things to be a little bit trepidatious about. Like I said, certainly you're not going to see a whole lot of multi-class bards, at least not in the levels of play that are most common. But their Bardic Inspiration is just so significantly improved that, like I said, whenever you use it, the whole table is going to take note. The whole table is going to care about where each of those goes. Whereas currently in 5th edition, you could give your Bardic Inspiration to someone and they could completely forget about it. They could never use it. They could add it to their character sheet and then just move on with their life. Now, the Bard has something that the whole party cares about and that is going to be extremely impactful starting from just level 2. I am so excited that the Bard is a prepared spellcaster. That makes a big difference to me. Even though a lot of these class features that I'm most excited about have been pushed back, and a couple of them have been, changed in some ways, by and large, the lion's share of things that I'm seeing here with the Bard are just strict and marked improvements over the 5th edition one, making me overall more excited to play a 1D&D Bard, even than I am in 5th edition, which is becoming a class that I am very excited to play.
So, would you say that the 1D&D Bard is bringing 6e back?
No.
Okay.
Just because I would never say that under any circumstances.
That's fine. So, I'm largely of the same opinion. I think that the changes made to the Bard are steps in a positive direction. The fact that it doesn't come online as quickly is rough. First level Bard
blows.
Really sucks. And I think it sucks more than the other 2 first level classes presented in the rest of this document, but we'll get there.
But you know what? To my point from earlier, how often do you play a first level Bard?
Well, actually, that's something that I'm going to be getting to here. I think that the changes that are made to the Bardic Inspiration die itself are positive changes. The changes that they made to the spell list and the way that bards interact with those spell lists are positive changes. I think, I'm going to call this shot now, if nothing significant changes about this playtest material before the final product, those first levels are going to be so unattractive to play. Normally in 5th edition, you see a lot of games start at 3rd level, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of when the class comes online. That's when you use your subclass feature. That's when your cleric starts to not be like the other clerics. And it's 2 levels away from those significant class features that normally bring the class online at 5th level. I think if nothing changes, you're going to see 1D&D games starting at 5th level, where each class has something that makes them unique, and they're 2 levels away from that very exciting 7th level, where the class really comes together.
I mean, I would argue that in 5th edition as well, the 5th level is way more impactful than the 3rd level.
Oh, it is. And now I'm saying that goalpost has kind of been moved to level 7, especially for the Bard class.
You still have an identity as a Bard by level 3. I think that the reason that 5th edition tables so often start at level 3 is because at 3rd level, you gain your identity as a Bard, and the amount of features and everything that you get at 1st and 2nd levels are just not very impactful. Like, not only are you dangerously close to dying from a cold, you are, much less a goblin encounter, you have an incomplete tool set, and you don't have very much identity. Personally, I think that you're still going to solve those problems at level 3 in 6th edition. That being said, with you as my main DM, if you want to start our games at 5th level, then I am not going to complain about it.
I think if I were presented with these classes to play, if I were a player, I would want to start at level 5. So I think Dungeon Masters may extend that courtesy to their players.
I always want to start at higher levels, so you'll have no argument from me. I mean, based on the 1D&D rules, if I start at 5th level, I also already have 2 feats.
Mm-hmm.
I like feats, Rob. I like feats.
But hey, maybe I'm wrong. And, the best way to tell me that I'm wrong is to come along into our Discord or hit us up on social media and let me know to my face. I've been wrong before. I'm fine being wrong again.
He certainly has, and he has no intention of stopping now. So, hey, how about we take a little bit of a break here? Because we've been talking about the Bard for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just speed through or rush as we go through this playtest material. I want to make sure we have adequate time to go through each of these classes. And if we did this all in one sitting, it would be a nightmare to edit.
Thank you.
To say nothing of the fact that I also like having meals and sleeping from time to time.
Right. We're going to come back in a little bit, and we're going to talk about more of this playtest material. And you know what? It'll probably go a little faster because you're going to see some similarity, some common threads between all of these expert classes that we don't have to cover in detail every time. So stay tuned to this podcast, and you will hear our opinions on the Ranger class very soon.
Stay tuned for Bardic Twinspiration, Ranger Things. The outro music you're listening to right now is called Mega Epic, and the intro music is called Super Epic. Both were composed by the wonderfully talented Alexander Nakarada and utilized under a Creative Commons license. If you enjoyed our content, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on your listening app of choice. To keep up with us on social media, look us up on facebook.com/Bardic Twinspiration and on Twitter @BTwinspiration. Want to interact with us directly? Come join our Discord. After all, who are we if not people who are willing to roll the dice on making some new friends? Links in the description. Come check it out.
I was very shocked by the what's up plays until you got to the DM's part.
Hey, you've been surprised by a lot of my decent jokes and lines lately. You should just get used to it. This is the new normal.
I never said the word decent.
You can't take back your compliments. They're recorded.
Mm-hmm.
You could edit them out, but you can't take them back.
We don't get to prepare from a fraction of a list like a wizard does. We get the full... Cars passing. I hate this road. A 5th edition bard gets up in the morning and knows 4 spells.
And pisses excellence. Sorry, I was going to let you cut that in there. Gets up in the morning and pisses excellence. Yeah.
I don't, but that's fine.
Oh, it's a saying. Cunning action to dash, disengage, or hide.
So, would you say that the 1D&D bard is bringing 6e back?
No.
Okay.
Just because I would never say that under any circumstances. Those other classes don't know how to act.